to feel free.
Love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna, I don't ever slow up. No, I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up.
I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. Everything I do so instinctive and so passionate. Every word I move so descriptive like an adjective. I got a vendetta against people who patented being negative when you should be getting after it. I got facts over tracks, this and that. Spitting slow, spitting fast. I could roast, I could gas. Think I'm okay at last, but I don't know if that can erase all the past. And the pettiness, a reflection of the emptiness. Hilarious, you think you're worth my time, you're delirious. Mysterious, because you hide behind a fake exterior. Inferior, you know I'll always be a bit superior. Get off of me, this ain't no humble brag. I want you to hear words, you can say them back. I want you to feel free from the chains that last, and to believe in what you got, it was built to last, yeah. Anyone's help, I had to do it all myself.
Yo.
I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. Gonna learn the consequence of being incompetent. Mental health is confidence, dreams and some.
Oh, that's such good music. Okay. So we got a lot on our plate today. Honestly, it's a lot. We are going to still be doing the Mormon stuff today. So we are going to have fun with that. I have listened to 2 hours of the Book of Mormon. I will keep going. I'll finish it this week. I'm actually going to do my workout after this video. But we're going to begin with Lauren Chen. And then we're going to get into Dan McKellen discussing Satan. And then we're going to get into Wise Disciple discussing Satan. And we're going to weigh the two against each other. From there, we have more of the Stick of Joseph. We're just going to do a little bit of Stick of Joseph because that's too much for me. I can't stop laughing, and it's going to be disrespectful at some point. Now we're going to be looking at DNA evidence for the Book of Mormon. And then we're going to look at Zelph on a Shelf. I know they're anti-Mormon, but I feel like it'd be good to get some perspective since we only do like 4 videos on Mormonism for this week. Yeah, you know, give or take. All right. So let's get going with Lauren Chen. Here we go. She is a gold mine of wrong things to say. Okay.
Couple of Orthodox Jews in New York, and they said to me I met a couple of Orthodox Jews in New York, and they said to me on the street that they called me rabbi, which was it's a hell of a thing to hear.
Now, people calling
Every
for
time.
censorship, especially online, unfortunately, is nothing new. But this latest round of demands for moderation, as it's often framed, comes from a pretty unexpected source. That's right. Today, we're going to be talking about the Twitter skirmish between Michaela Peterson and Nick Fuentes that actually resulted in
A racist asshole and a decent human being with some, I'm going to say, confidence issues. Let's stick with the decent human being and not worry what the racist asshole has to say. Okay.
Michaela Peterson seemingly, and I mean, it seems explicitly, asking Elon Musk for more online censorship. It's a
Moderation is not simply censorship. Censorship for censorship's sake is bad, but there needs to be some moderation and some rule of law. There's going to be a line in here that I think we can no longer deny what Lauren Chan's stance is on, I don't want to say Jewish people, but let's just say Semitic people. Yeah, it's very disappointing to hear where she goes. But here we go. Let's fast forward this. Let's get to it.
Pretty crazy story that personally I wouldn't have believed unless I saw the exchange unfolding in real time. But I do want to preface this video with the fact that I've spoken to Michaela Peterson on several occasions. I wouldn't say we're close or even friends or anything like that, but she's always been very friendly and sweet to me. And I do overall
Yeah, she's a decent human being, and what you're about to do right now is really gross.
like a lot of her work. However, when it comes to this issue, you guys will probably know if you've been following me that I'm very adamantly on the side of free speech. And I feel like I
You
have
cannot be an absolute free speech absolutist in the way that you think you are. Because if you were, then you wouldn't have a problem with, let's say, LGBTQ issues that you have a problem with, or the way that Pride Parade or Pride products are presented. If you were truly a free speech absolutist, you would have total ability to accept other people's freedom of expression, which you don't, which makes you a hypocrite, which means you're not truly freedom of speech or a free speech absolutist.
an obligation to call out and debunk demands for censorship, even if they happen to come from someone who I otherwise agree with on many, if not most things. But for context, let's start with the tweet that really kicked everything off. So on July 6th, the account Dr. Anastasia Maria Lupus, who I'm not super familiar with, but from what I understand is, definitely a large account and is probably best known for her critiques of Zionism. She posted something saying Jewish contributions, who owns OnlyFans, Leonid Radvinsky, who is Jewish, who owns most porn websites, Rabbi Solomon.
But again, what are the tweets before that? Did she have a long list of anti-Semitic tweets that then accumulated in this tweet? You're not giving that context. You're not giving the context for the rest of what she puts out there.
Friedman, who is Jewish. By the way, I just want to insert here the fact that an actual rabbi could own porn websites and still not be excommunicated from his faith community, I think is very strange.
Okay, so first off, go back and watch the video from Michael Beverly with Vashante. There's only one Jewish person that's ever been excommunicated, ever, anyway. But let's not worry about that. Judaism is not just a religion, you nitwit. It's a ethnicity. You're not going to excommunicate someone from your cultural group. You can be a rabbi and have many different beliefs. Just like you can be a pastor and have many different beliefs. Not every Christian believes the same thing that your version of Christianity believes.
And say that I have questions would be putting it mildly, but let's get back to it. Who founded Tinder? Sean Rad, who's Jewish. Who founded Grindr? Joel Simkai, who is Jewish. Who founded Bumble? Whitney Wolfe Herd, who is Jewish. So I will say that I find it funny that Bumble is included on this list because Tinder and Grindr especially are infamous for being hookup apps specifically, but I thought, or I was under the impression that Bumble was just a more general dating app. Maybe I'm wrong there. I would never think to equate Bumble with OnlyFans and then straight up porn, but maybe that's just me. But in any case,
also, if you're going after this, how come you're not going after Twitter? I'm bombarded by porn on Twitter lately. It didn't used to be that way. When people were saying that it's happening to them, it wasn't happening with me. It's happening with me now too. I have a completely clean, like I sanitized almost all the controversial people off of my thing. I have an alt. I have multiple alts that I go to because I'm doing this now. So I make sure there's nothing in my feed that could be used against me in a debate. And yet, in my feed, there's stuff that's not appropriate for the audience that I'm cultivating. I have a burner one that I use for shit posting. There's sometimes no porn. But one that talks about religion has porn chicks on it. That's weird. It's a weird thing that's happening with the algorithm on Twitter. And you're not complaining about Twitter's free speech stance. No, you're complaining about you're anti-porn, which means you're not a free speech absolutist. If you're anti-porn, you're not a free speech absolutist. You're not supporting porn. You're not supporting sexual expression. I'm not saying you have to be a free speech absolutist. I'm not a free speech absolutist, but you're being hypocritical.
Ended up getting quite a lot of traction. As we can see at the time that I'm filming this, it has 5.3 million views and over 39,000 likes. However, someone who certainly didn't like this tweet was Michaela Peterson, who ended up quote tweeting it saying, "I cannot believe I'm seeing Nazis in my lifetime that didn't grow up in a cave." She's an MD, spewing cherry-picked data while completely ignoring facts like almost 30% of Nobel Peace Prize winners are Jews. Maybe there does need to be some more content moderation at Elon Musk. And so already...
And by the way, I saw the original tweet in the original context of the original tweet when it first happened because I am subscribed or follow both Michaela and Lauren. Michaela's tweet was perfect. It was spot on. It was completely correct.
We can see here that this is where things get interesting, to say the least, because not only
And again, I support free speech, but I do believe there should be some limits. Who decides the limits? Well, whoever owns the product. That's who gets to decide the limit. If it's a public space owned by the public, well, then that window, that range needs to be super wide. But if it's a private company, they get to decide what's on their platforms.
is Michaela Peterson here pushing back on the idea or the implication that these pornographers represent the entirety or the general vibes of Jewish contributions toward Western societies, is that she specifically seems to be calling for censorship. Maybe there does need to be some more content moderation, Elon Musk. And I also personally, and I want to hear what you guys think about this, take issue with the term Nazis being applied here, because we know that for literally years at this point, the left has called everybody.
Dude, don't be a moron. Nick Fuentes is a literal white nationalist. He literally supports Christian nationalism and white nationalism. Don't play stupid. You're a very smart person with a good amount of money. Don't do this kind of stuff. This is beneath you. This is below you. This is evil. This hurts you. You're not white. When Nick Fuentes' buddies come after people, guess what? You're on the list too, just like me. I'm a Mexican with Jewish heritage. Nick Fuentes doesn't like me. What are you doing? You want a better world for your child who's a real person to live in, not a place where he or she is going to have to experience more racism and more hatred simply because of the color of the skin, or because of the slant of their eye, or because the accent that they might have. None of that stuff, none of that matters. And you're defending someone who hates people like you and I.
They don't like a Nazi, which has really cheapened the meaning of the word. Now, like I said, I am not super familiar with this Dr. Anastasia account. Maybe she previously has called for violence or discrimination toward Jewish people. But
Maybe look that up before you make a story about it.
I just don't think it's fair to call someone who is pointing out Jewish overrepresentation in the porn industry a
Yeah, because apparently no one else likes porn. No one else produces it.
Nazi. I mean, think about it. How is that any different from being
I wonder if there's a booming porn industry in, let's say, Brazil or Venezuela, or maybe even in Asia. Maybe in Japan, there's a huge porn industry. Perhaps it's maybe famous, and perhaps it takes inspiration from its own culture and its own ancient art. Maybe, perhaps.
BLM activists calling anyone who talks about Black crime statistics racist. Like, people are allowed to comment on problems within certain communities without it meaning that they hate everyone from that community. And I feel like people on the right and center understand this concept when it comes to like the Black community, the LGBTQ community, or even the Muslim and Hispanic communities. Like, we can talk about problems these communities face specifically or disproportionately, areas where they are overrepresented in negative things. And it doesn't mean
How would we talk about problems with the Asian community then? I mean, you're good at pointing fingers at everyone else. Can you point them at yourself?
we hate all of them. But for some reason, when it comes to Jewish people, it seems like there is a double standard. I really do think that
How about point out problems in the Christian community?
Michaela Peterson could have just left it at the fact that 30% of Nobel Peace Prize winners are Jews. Therefore, we actually have some good contributions that Jews are making. It's not all negative, and just like left it at that. You didn't need to call for censorship. But she did kind of, I guess, try to clarify her position in some follow-up tweets, saying, to clarify, I'm not pro-censorship. But unfortunately, I feel like the but there is kind of like, as Dr. Phil sometimes says, if you say a statement and then follow it up with but immediately after, you're basically saying, here's what I don't think, but here's what I actually think now that I'm going to tell you about it, now that I've tried to give a disclaimer to protect myself. In any case, she says, unfortunately, the dregs of society are going to take over this platform because they have nothing better to do. It's not
Twitter does need some regulation. It is getting out of control. The racism and homophobia is getting out of control. And I'm someone who tolerates a lot of stuff. Like I said, even a month ago, this is June 2024. Oh, sorry, just July 2024. Even a month ago, 2 months ago, it wasn't this bad. Like it's increasing the amount of grossness on that app. You know, I mean, if you want to make it the Wild West, that's fine, but you got to make it the Wild West. If you're gonna put some rules, then the rules have to be legit. And Elon Musk knows this. That he bans accounts all the time, and he bans suspicious accounts all the time. His company is not irresponsible. You're being irresponsible by telling him to be irresponsible. Are they doing enough? Probably not. Could they do too much? Yeah, they could. The way that Twitter was before was unusable. The way that Twitter was under, its liberal, quote unquote, democratic policies didn't work. It didn't work. I hated Twitter the way it was 3 years ago. And I really liked Twitter when Elon Musk first took over. I really liked Twitter maybe 2-3 months ago. But the amount of hate, the amount of porn, the amount of unregulated misbehavior is getting crazy. And in him trying to moderate and regulate it without strong rules, he's getting a lot of innocent people either banned or blocked on the app. There's several people who I follow who on their safe accounts have been hit, and yet on their regular accounts they're still fine. So there's an imbalance going on there. Michaela is not wrong to point this out. Michaela is not wrong to ask for a better regulation, for a better system. There's nothing wrong with asking. There's nothing wrong with people on Twitch asking for that of Twitch. There's nothing wrong with people who are on YouTube asking that of YouTube. Can it go too far? Yes, of course. We all agree. But there's a difference between irresponsible, repressive censorship and legal moderation to protect people. Unless you like seeing porn and racist stuff on your stream, in which that case, go look at those sites or go look at those tweets and get more and more of it.
All of the successful Jewish people are here to fight back against the hate because they actually have something to do. My feed is full of Nazis and misogynistic losers. She says, I don't think it says anything about Elon, and it would be nice if there was a platform without censorship that the losers of society didn't just overtake. But because they have
I agree with Michaela on that one as well.
nothing better to do, they're going to. There's more of them than half-ways intelligent people. So how do you fix that serious question? Now, as you can imagine, basically, yes, calling for more moderation, that wasn't a very popular position that Michaela took, and she did get...
You know what's interesting about popularity? It's not always right. The popular thing is not always the right thing, and the unpopular thing is not always the wrong thing. Maybe, like, let's say Christianity, which was not popular and will one day not be popular again. But if you're a true Christian, you're going to hold to it, even when it's not popular. Maybe. Have you heard this one? No? Okay.
Quite a bit of pushback from it. We have Keith Woods here, who I've had on the channel before. So in other words, you are pro-censorship. And an account called Bugs Bunny Groiper quoting her saying, maybe there needs to be some content moderation. I'm not pro-censorship though. What would that content moderation be other than censorship? In response to that though, Fuentes followed up by saying that your dad literally called me a rat last week. Thank you for exposing yourself and revealing the case. In a somewhat ironically deleted tweet, which I did manage to find a screenshot of, Michaela then went on to say, yes, I think the Nazis on X equating Jews with rats and using hashtags like #filth should have more content moderation / censorship. No, I'm not retracting that statement, she said. In response to that, though, Fuentes followed up by saying that your dad literally called me a rat last week. Thank you for exposing yourself and revealing who you really work for. Both of you freaks.
Why are you defending Nick Fuentes, Lauren? Seriously, what are you doing with your channel? Is this why you don't work with the Blaze anymore? Because the Blaze wouldn't let you do this? Why are you doing this? This is weird. This is not cool. This is not edgy. This isn't interesting. This is a mistake. You're defending a bad person for bad reasons. It's okay to defend a bad person for good reasons. Like maybe he didn't do a specific thing, even though he's a bad guy. You can defend him. He's doing the thing that Michaela is saying he's doing, and you're still defending him. Why?
Should be deported to Israel since you love it so much, they can have you. To which Michaela replied, you sound mad you weren't born a Jew. Michaela would also follow up to Nick saying, OMG,
That's
you were called a rat. Did that hurt? I work for myself, you loser. And I know that Jew success is due to their above average IQ, but I'm sure blaming a nation of people for your failings is easier for you. Now, I will point out here, because I think it's kind of ironic that this whole situation started because Michaela saw
Lauren Chen is the queen of missing the point.
a post that made her uncomfortable, and so she decided to call for content moderation. She didn't say that the post was inaccurate, that it was wrong, and that post in question didn't use any slurs. It was merely pointing to facts, specifically that Jewish people are overrepresented in pornography, at least owning it. But now, when confronted,
If you can't hear the I don't know what you're listening to because I can hear it. Okay, next one. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Time for Dan McKellen. Who's ready? I think it's my first real Dan video on here. Maybe my second. Let's go. I've been adding a lot of cardio, and somehow I woke up a little chubbier today. Like I had like little chubby cheeks. And I'm like, I've been working out a lot. Why am I gaining even any amount of weight? It's crazy. My calves are on fire.
And their character are not in the Bible. They develop most of the ideas that modern Christians have about.
Seriously, like, look at it. How do I have little chubby cheeks? Like I've been losing weight. I ran yesterday. I don't get this.
About Satan and their history. Most of the ideas.
Okay. So before we get into this, the Satan and Lucifer stuff, this is a favorite topic of me and Gar's. I miss Gar a lot. But the Satan, the devil, the Lucifer of the Christian mythos, of the popular modern imagination, is not in the Bible, period. And in the Old Testament, forget about it. He ain't there. And so me and Gur spent a lot of time, like days, maybe even weeks, doing research, just reading through the Bible. And I think we actually did a stream where we actually read every single reference to hell, every single reference to the devil or Satan. There's almost nothing there. That it doesn't have a lot of detail. You know, it's really tied into the Greek and tied into Sheol and the Hebrew. You got Hades, you got Tartarus, you got all this kind of stuff. And then you try to go back to the Old Testament and you try to find the same thing. The equivalent isn't there. My theory is that it has more to do with Baal and Aziel, but that's my own theory. So, wise disciple said something stupid a few days ago in trying to define the devil. He's going to use a passage that a lot of people use. So what I am going to do, I was planning on actually to make this a video that I was actually going to do the video on, and I was going to read the Jewish interpretation of it. I might still do that. Yeah, actually, I think I am going to do that. But I'm going to first have Dan explain. I'm going to come back with my with one of my Jewish commentaries, and then we're going to listen to Wise Disciple. I'm going to compare what the two guys are saying and see who's correct. Okay? Give me 1 second while I go get that book. I'll be right back.
I'll always show up and make a statement. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement.
Everything I do so instinctive and so passionate. Every word I move so descriptive like an adjective. I got a vendetta against people who patented being negative when you should be getting after it. I got facts over tracks, this and that. Spitting slow, spitting fast, I could roast, I could gas. Think I'm okay at last, but I don't know if that can erase all the past. And the pettiness, a reflection of the emptiness. Hilarious, you think you're worth my time, you're delirious. Mysterious, because you hide behind a fake exterior. Inferior, you know I'll always be a bit superior. Get off of me, this ain't no humble brag. I want you to hear words, you can say them back. I want you to feel free from the chains at last, and to believe in what you got, it was built to last, yeah.
Now that I've been put through hell, I never got anyone's help. I had to do it all myself.
I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take.
Oh no! I wish it was Edema. Edema would so copyright strike me. No. It's NeFX. I love Edema though. I do. Okay, so I brought my Isaiah. I also brought Jeremiah and my five guys. But I brought my Isaiah And we're going to see what the Jewish commentary says about this, okay? All right, let's continue on. First, let's start off with Dan.
That modern Christians have about Satan and their history and their character are not in the Bible. They developed outside of or after the Bible. Hey everybody, I'm Dan McClellan. I'm a scholar of the Bible and religion, and there is no figure named Satan anywhere in the Hebrew Bible. There's a noun, Satan, which means accuser or adversary, that is used to refer to anyone who takes up a...
I like ancient adversary. I think that's a good title for him. But I like to think of him as a lawyer, as a persecuting lawyer. That's how I like to think of him, and at least how he's presented in the Old Testament. Also, the devil would have fallen before the whole time of man, so trying to have him fall after man doesn't make a lot of sense. Also, if he fell, what was he doing in heaven talking to God? You know what I mean? There's just a lot of problems when you try to put the Christian mythos on top of the Jewish understanding of Satan. There are problems. But anyway, let's keep going.
A position accusing or adversarial towards another person, and anybody can function as a Satan. Even the angel of the Lord comes out against Balaam in Numbers 22 as a Satan, as a Satan. And then another usage, a minority usage, where it occurs with the definite article, Hasatan, the Satan, is a reference to a role or a position within the divine council, something comparable to a prosecuting attorney. This is somebody that accuses humans of not doing what they're supposed to be doing. But we really only see it popping up when the Satan is falsely or unjustly accusing someone, as we see in Job and in Zechariah. Now, it was in the Enochic literature of Greco-Roman period Judaism that we have the foundation laid for this divine profile of this character known as Satan. Now, it starts with this kind of fan fiction about Genesis 6, verses 2 through 4, where we elaborate and innovate on this tale about the B'nai Elohim, the children of God, coming down to earth and having offspring with human women. In the Enochic literature, it is malevolent angels, and there's one head malevolent angel who goes by a bunch of different names. Shemihazah, Azael, Azazel. We also have in other Greco-Roman period Jewish literature, Mastema, Melchirashah, Belial.
And I always think of Azazel, as however he said it, but I like how I say it better. I like Azael, because I like Batman.
Bunch of different ways to refer to them, and a couple of times they're referred to as Satan, Satan, in this literature. But we also have the plural use of that word, Satans, which seems to be a kind of class of malevolent deity in the Enochic literature. But this is where the notion of an individual named Satan begins to develop, and it's further developed in the New Testament, where we have two main titles for this head malevolent angel, Satan and the devil, or ho diabolos, which is the ancient Greek translation that is used to render...
I know I have a few Jewish followers on my channel. If you guys are watching, even if you're on incognito mode, if you can get out of incognito mode, if you happen to have this version of the of Jewish commentary of the Art Scroll, which volume has Ezekiel? Because I need Ezekiel 28, and I don't want to spend like 5 minutes in my bedroom looking for it. If you can just tell me the volume, I can run and grab it. Thank you.
Satan throughout the Hebrew Bible. And this character is merged with some other figures from the Hebrew Bible. So Beelzebub seems to be identified with Satan. We also have the Leviathan, an imagery associated with the Leviathan, this primordial chaos monster, linked with Satan, particularly in the book of Revelation. And this is where we get some confusion, because the serpent from the Garden of Eden is nowhere identified as Satan anywhere in the Bible, not in the Hebrew Bible, not in the New Testament. A lot of people will point to passages in Revelation that talk about this ancient serpent, but that's an ancient red
When I, a college dropout, and Gar, possibly a high school dropout, talk about this, and we say the exact same thing that Dan says, nobody watched. Nobody. But because Dan has a doctorate degree, everybody's paying attention. He's saying the same thing we said. Okay? He's saying the same thing. We're in the same book. I'm just saying.
Headed dragon and serpent. And this is Leviathan. The only place where you have this serpent also described as a dragon is in Isaiah 27:1, and Leviathan, as we see in Psalm 74, and in the ancient Ugaritic literature that's being quoted in Isaiah 27:1, is a seven-headed dragon. So this is very clearly a reference to Leviathan and not to the serpent from the Garden of Eden. And Leviathan also predates the serpent in the Garden of Eden, coming before the creation of the earth. There's also confusion associated with Lucifer in Isaiah, who is nowhere identified as Satan anywhere in the Hebrew Bible or in the New Testament. Some people will point to a passage in Luke where Jesus says, I saw Satan falling like lightning from heaven. And they suggest this must be
Where's that?
Lucifer's fall.
You
In
just
Luke,
said
where
it.
Jesus says, I saw Satan falling like lightning from heaven. And they suggest this must be Lucifer's fall from heaven. But there's a much better candidate. Again, going back to the Enochic literature, we have Enoch at one point saying, I saw a star fall to earth from heaven. And then other stars fell to earth to join the first star. This is part of the animal apocalypse, which is telling the story of the head malevolent angel descending to earth and then the other angels coming down afterwards. And this matches up also with...
And one of the things that happens is that a lot of these traditions that are extra biblical traditions, especially, survive in the Christian mythos, in the Christian folklore. So the cultural Christianity keeps that alive, but they don't remember the reference point. And so what happens is there's a shift where you have Protestants who don't understand oral tradition, who don't understand that, like, for instance, like the Immaculate Conception, the perpetual virginity of Mary, who Mary's parents are, comes from these extra biblical traditions that Catholics kept alive. Well, because they're so separated from Catholicism and they don't have these references, they think that it's in the Bible, and it's not. And so they'll try to find verses in the Bible that corroborate what they believe, and so they will misinterpret or reinterpret or completely garble what the Bible is saying, and they will misattribute something, so that way their understanding of a Catholic oral tradition or a Catholic folk tradition survives. Now it's I don't want to say canonized, but now it's authorized. Now it's okay because it's in the Bible, but it's not in the Bible. It was never in the Bible. So like it's
Revelation story about the dragon falling to earth and that with their tail sweeping a third of the stars of heaven with them. So the Enochic literature is far more determinative of the divine profile of Satan that we find in the New Testament. And
so these traditions survive in Catholic folk tradition. And Catholic folk tradition is not official Christian or Catholic teaching. It's just not, but it survives. And then it gets put into Christian literature. And then through the Christian literature, it becomes, I don't know, cemented into the mind of the Christian, generationally gets passed on. And then you lose that original thread. You don't remember where it came from. So now it has to come from the Bible, but it was never in our official Bible.
And it's really after the New Testament, within the first few centuries of Christianity, that we begin to connect these dots and identify Satan with Lucifer and with the serpent from the Garden of Eden. And then...
Okay, so that's all good. I agree with almost everything that he said. Let's move on to the part where I now start correcting. No ad. I forgot to hit silent. No ad. Ooh, I hit silent just in time. Okay.
Where I would disown them and kick. I never so close to God.
So here is Wise Disciple. He's going to take on what we were just talking about, and he's going to blow it. He's going to go into Fantasyland. Interesting Fantasyland. He's not the first person I've heard make this claim, but it ain't correct.
So, well, now I'm hungry. So I guess the point here was reading the Bible makes people atheists. Okay, but how though?
One thing I never understood when I was a Christian was they always describe Satan as being like God's favorite angel. He was just like the most talented. He was like so close to God, and then he just got ahead of himself and won.
Again, that's great, but that's not in the Bible. It's just not.
Wanted to be like God. I never had a moment in time where one of my kids wanted to be like me, and I was just like angry about it to the point to where I would disown them and kick them out and stuff like that.
So, okay. Notice the way that this is being framed for her audience. According to the Bible, it appears that the devil's origin story was that
Well, the devil's sin is pride. That is the origin story. It's pride. But it ain't biblical. And you're going to find a passage that seems to fit and you're going to turn it into a thing about Satan, which other Christians have done. That's fine. But that's not the original intent of the original author, and it's not the intent of the book in its original context. It's a reframing and recontextualization that doesn't have any biblical basis. There are typological bases. There are arguments in the New Testament for typological arguments in the Old Testament. You can have typological references in the Old Testament. That's the wrong word, isn't it? That's not going to be here. Here, this is wholesale. We're going to take one story and we're just going to reapply it to a different character.
He was a divine being, part of the beings that God created as part of his heavenly host. So this lady says, well, you know what? Satan got ahead of himself and he wanted to be like God. But is that what really happened?
No one can be equal or above God, and trying so is a sin.
Look at this, Isaiah chapter 14, verse 12.
Okay, Isaiah chapter 14, verse 12. Let's not go with his version. Let's go with the article. Chapter 14, verse 12. Okay. He's going to go, it looks like he's going to go to 15. So let's do this. Actually, let's read one sentence before that. I always like going at least one sentence before. Actually, you know what? It's not even that long. Let's go all the way back. All the way back. Okay. Her time is soon to come. Her days will not long endure. For Hashem will show mercy to Jacob. He will choose Israel again and grant them rest upon their land. The proselyte will join them and be attached to the house of Jacob. The nations will take them and bring them to their place. The house of Israel will possess them as slaves and maidservants upon the land of Hashem. They will be captors over their captors, and they will rule over their oppressors. It shall be on the day when Hashem grants you relief from your distress and your anxiety, and from the hard labor with which you were worked. You will recite this parable about the king of Babylonia. So who is this parable about? The king of Babylonia. Is this about Satan? No. Is it about Lucifer? No. Is it about the devil? No. It's about the king of Babylon. Let's see. What's that? Number 3. Oh, well, we'll come back to this in a second. Okay, let's continue on. How has the oppressor come to an end? The arrogance will be ended. Hashem has broken the staff of the wicked, the rod of rulers, who would strike people with fury and with unrelenting blows, who would oppress nations with wrath. The nations were pursued by them without respite. The entire land is quiet and tranquil. They broke out in glad song. Even the cypress rejoice over you, O cedars of Lebanon, saying, from the time that you were laid low, the woodcutter would not come up against us. The netherworld from below trembles for you to greet your arrival. It has awakened the giants for you. All the leaders of the world it has aroused, all the kings of the land out of their thrones. They will all proclaim to you and say to you, you also have been stricken as we were. You are compared to us, brought down to the netherworld, where your pride and the tumult of your stringed instruments, maggots are spread from under you, and worms are your cover. How have you fallen from the heavens, O glowing morning star? You have been cut down to the ground, O conqueror of nations. You had said in your heart, I will ascend to the heavens, higher than the stars of God. I shall raise my throne. I will sit at the mountain of meeting on the northern side. I will ascend over the tops of the clouds. I will liken myself to the Most High. But to the netherworld you have been lowered, to the bottom of the pit. Those who see you will make note. They will contemplate you carefully. Is this the man? Notice the man. Is this the man who made the land tremble? Who made kingdoms quake? Who made the world like a wilderness and tore down its cities? Who never released his captives to go home? What captives? The Jewish people who were in Babylon. All kings of the nations, all of them, lie in honor, each in his place. But you have been flung from your grave, like a detested tree shoot, like the garment of corpses pierced by the sword, which are lowered into stone pits, like a trampled carcass. You will not join them in burial. You have destroyed your land and killed your people. Your evil offspring will not be called by your name for long. Prepare a slaughter for his sons, for their father's iniquities. Let them not arise and inherit the land, lest the world become full of enemies. I will rise up against them, the word of Hashem, master of legions, and I will cut them off for Babylonia's name and remnant, child and grandchild, the word of Hashem. I will make it an inheritance for the hedgehog and the marsh of water. So, not talking about Satan, not talking about Lucifer, talking about the king who refused to release them from Babylon. So, the prophet explains that Babylonia must be destroyed as soon as possible because as long as they are a ruling power, Jerusalem will not be rebuilt. And it is only with the destruction of Babylonia that the redemption of Israel will emerge. As it happened, Babylonia was conquered by the Persians and the Medes, with Cyrus the Persian coming to the throne 1 year after the conquest. Cyrus is the one who permitted the Jews to return to their land and rebuild their temple. Isaiah foretells that on the day when the Babylonians will be defeated and Israel will return to Jerusalem, and the Jewish people will sing a song regarding the downfall of Babylon. Now, that's not how it happened. That's the prophecy. But the people were released without there being a war. The new king came in and the new king released them. But it wasn't the Jewish people who overthrew them. It was the new king who overthrew them. It's the new king who conquered and released them, not the old king. So it wasn't the Babylonians. It wasn't the Jewish people who did it. It was their Christ, which is the king that freed them. Okay? So Cyrus releases them. All right. That doesn't mean there aren't parallels. You can make the parallels, but you can't say that it's literally talking about Satan or the devil, because that's not who it's literally talking about. It's literally talking about the king who conquered them, who didn't release them. And it's prophesying an event that doesn't happen because the next king releases them. Okay. The Holy Zohar comments homiletically of the relief of your distress and anxiety in Shabbos, explains that logically it would have seemed impossible for a Jew who is beset all week with all sorts of problems to forget when all of Shabbos arrives. Our verse tells us that Shabbos is a long gift from anxiety and release. Okay, and then it talks about jealousy. We don't really care about that. Let's see. Where is the next big thing to learn about? Staff of hardship. Rashi. Okay. The kings who ruled over the defeated nations that were incorporated into the Babylonian Empire are metaphorically described as cypress and cedars. Although they were treated with respect by their conquerors, they too will rejoice upon the death of Nebuchadnezzar, who is metaphorically described as the woodcutter because he cut down the sovereignty of the cypress and the cedars. Although Nebuchadnezzar was succeeded by evil Merodach and Balashad, to whom the nations would be forced to continue paying tribute, these kings were not as ruthless as Nebuchadnezzar, who would either kill his subjects, imprison them, or force them to perform hard labor if they were not docile enough to submit to him. So again, Cyrus the Great is the Christ here. And they're not even prophesying Cyrus the Great. They're prophesying an overthrow from within, and it doesn't happen. I'll get to that in a little bit. BS. So instead, you have one king, and I'll be honest, I forgot about the next two kings. So you have two more kings coming in who are just as bad as he is. A little bit less according to this book, but they're just as bad. And then you have a new nation come in and conquer them. And in that conquering, he then frees the Jewish people. So, yeah. Isaiah continues to metaphorically describe the power of Nebuchadnezzar and the terror it imposes on his vassals, living and rejoicing at his death. But the death will tremble. But the dead will tremble, for now they fear that he will oppress them in the netherworld. So it's not talking about hell. It's talking about a king so powerful that even the dead fear him. Again, this is the original context. This is to be understood figuratively. The netherworld will awaken to great leaders who have died and will demand that they come forth and greet Nebuchadnezzar. The word he-goats is a metaphor for leaders because he-goats are animals that lead the flock. Figuratively, it will be as if the dead kings were alive and raising from their thrones to greet Nebuchadnezzar. It is possibly that Babylonians actually placed thrones in burial tombs. Okay. The song continues as the dead kings mock Nebuchadnezzar. So exceedingly arrogant was he that he even regarded himself as a god. And now he has joined other mere mortals in the netherworld. So again, it's talking about Nebuchadnezzar, not Satan. No one will sing a song about Nebuchadnezzar. Instead of fine linen and luxurious bedding in his tomb, he will be pampered with maggots and worms. Let's see. Nebuchadnezzar's degradation continues. The great monarch who was compared with the morning star, which, by the way, Jesus is also compared with the morning star, so don't make too much out of that either. The brightest star in the heavens has been struck down. It is as if the star itself had fallen from heaven to earth. And that's according to Radak. Nebuchadnezzar was so powerful that he would not take the strength of his opponent's armies into account. He would merely cast lots and choose the nation that he would attack, and no one would have the power to resist. This powerful king has been cut down and fallen to the ground, and that's according to Medzidus. In his arrogance, Nebuchadnezzar thought that he would be as impregnable to opposition as if he were ruling from heaven. The star of God, or the stars of God, as a metaphor for the Jewish people. Nebuchadnezzar thought that he was greater than God's people. Let's read 2 more notes and then we'll keep going. Nebuchadnezzar wished to conquer Jerusalem and place his throne at the mountain of meeting on top of Mount Zion, the Temple Mount, where all of Israel assembles and meets. The temple area was in the northern side of Jerusalem at that time. The inhabited section of the city was south of the temple. The north side refers to Babylonia because it was the countryside that was at the northeast extremity of the civilized world. Although Babylonia was a flat plain, the prophet figuratively referred to it as a mountain to convey an impression of strength and power. And that's according to Yosef Kiminchi. The arrogant Nebuchadnezzar felt that he could not dwell among mortal men, and figuratively wished to dwell alone above the clouds, as does the Most High. Here, that's according to Mitzadus. The king thought that he would make a small cloud and dwell there. The sages contrast the arrogance of non-Jewish evildoers with the humility of the great men of Israel. Abraham said, "I am dust and ash," in Genesis. And Moses and Aaron said, "What are we?" in Exodus. Nebuchadnezzar said, "I will liken myself to the Most High." Sennacherib said, "Who among all the gods of the land saved their land from my hand?" That's according to Isaiah. Hiram said, "I am a god," and that's from Ezekiel. Now we heard Dan, we heard the rabbis. Now let's hear Mr. Apologist.
Of how you are fallen from heaven, O Daystar, son of dawn, how you are cut down to the ground, you who laid the nations low. Watch this. You said in your heart, I will ascend to heaven, above the stars of God. I will set my throne on high. I will sit on the mount of assembly in the far reaches of the north. I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. I will make myself like the Most High. Okay. At first blush, it sounds like this lady has a point. Now,
Except that's not about Satan. Except it's not about Satan. Not about Lucifer. It's just not. Let's forget that Lucifer is not even shouldn't even be in there. But it's not about Satan. It's not.
It's another video altogether to get into the specifics of the reasoning behind the devil being in view here in this passage and in Ezekiel chapter 28 as well. Okay.
I'm not going to go find Ezekiel chapter 28. Go buy yourself the Art Scrolls edition commentary, Jewish commentary. It's very good. I find it very useful. It's been very illuminating. I use this just as often I use my Catholic Study Bible. This is very good stuff. Use this one. This one, a Catholic Study Bible, like a good Catholic Study Bible, not a bad one. Stay away from Ignatius Press. Go get the Oxford. Get the Oxford Catholic Study Bible. Get this collection. This is expensive. It is, but whatever. And go get the Oxford 5th edition ecumenical by annotated study Bible. Get those 3 Bibles, including all of this stuff, and I'm telling you, the way you view the Bible will change immensely.
And if you want a video like that, maybe we can, let me know and I'll make one. But suffice it to say, Christians understand that the devil is being described here. And so then you look at that, and especially verse 14, and you say, wow, it sounds like this lady is right. The devil wanted to be like.
So if we didn't have modern fiction to tell us who, B.S. Lewis says we should use the non-inspired version of the Bible. In other words, the NIV. But if you didn't have modern fiction or even medieval fiction to tell you who Satan was, and you were just looking at this passage, you wouldn't think of Satan without the fiction that surrounds him. I understand that church fathers have also made this connection with this passage. I'm not trying to argue against the church fathers here. I'm saying that you as a reader looking at the Bible as literature would not get to this connection on your own.
Like the Most High. So what's wrong with that? Ezekiel tells us, though. Ezekiel chapter 28, verse 12. Thus says the Lord God, you were the signet of perfection, full of wisdom and perfect in beauty. You were in Eden. the garden of God. Every precious stone was your covering, sardius, topaz, and diamond.
When we get to the Mormon part in the second hour, I'll go ahead and recap what I've read in the Book of Mormon so far.
Beryl, onyx, and jasper, sapphire, emerald, and carbuncle, and crafted in gold were your settings and your engravings. On the day that you were created, they were prepared. Here it is. You were an anointed guardian cherub. I placed you. You were on the holy mountain of God. In the
I thought it was done. I didn't think I was going to have to open this back up. Okay, Isaiah 14, right? Isaiah 14, verse 14. Isaiah 14, verse 14. Isaiah 14, verse 14. Alternative translation from the Hebrew. I will ascend over the tops of the clouds. I will like myself to the Most High. I will liken myself to the Most High. I don't know how to read Hebrew, and I'm not sure I'm allowed to show the text without getting like copyright strike from HeartScroll. I know they can be litigious. But I got the Hebrew over here. If anybody wants to, let me see. Where would we? Okay, how am I going to do this? I'm going to do it like this. I'm gonna do it like this. Okay, if anyone wants to translate this, feel free. Okay, tell me if you see the word cherub in there in the Hebrew. There we go. Anybody who can read Hebrew, help me out. Okay.
In the midst of the stones of fire you walked. You were blameless in your ways from the day you were created till...
I'm not saying it's not in there. I'm saying I didn't see it in this translation, and I don't know how to read Hebrew. So
here it is. Unrighteousness was...
B.S. Lewis, you have a brain. That's how you can tell. B.S. Lewis is asking, how can we tell the literal from the metaphorical without our own presuppositions? Señor, tú tengo un cabeza más grande con mucho... I don't know how to say thoughts in Spanish. Con mucho thoughts.
Found in you.
Wow, no. I just built the most
Commercials and music are my bane.
Of your trade, you were filled with violence in your midst, and you sinned. So I cast you as a profane thing from the mountain of God.
You're intelligent enough to write a sentence, B.S. Lewis. You're intelligent enough to understand metaphor and literalism in the Bible.
And I destroyed you, O guardian cherub, from the midst of the stones of fire. Your heart was proud because of your beauty.
You can read comic books. You can figure this stuff out.
You corrupted your wisdom for the sake of your splendor. Notice
Mi cabeza is full of something presuppositions.
Those key terms in there. Unrighteousness, sin, pride, corruption, right?
If you, wise disciple, are heavily reading into this text, an exorbitant amount of reading into, like it's, you're taking the typology too literally. Yes, you can use typology here. Yes, you can make a typological argument for this being a type of Lucifer. But it is not talking about Lucifer. You're confusing typology with literalism. When you say my heart fluttered like a bird, it doesn't mean that I actually have a bird. It is, when I say like, I'm as strong as an ox, or I was a wolf, hungering, gulping down my food, stalking my prey. That doesn't mean I literally became a wolf. That you're taking the typology and you're making it over literal. Yes, this can be a type of Lucifer. We can try to understand Lucifer through this typology, We can. The church fathers do it, but you have to understand that it's only typology. It's not literal.
If you want to know why the devil was cast out, it's because of these particular characteristics, these qualities that drove him to rebel. And if you put that together with Isaiah, now you see a fuller picture.
You mean if you take a different book written by a different author at a different time in a different place and put them together, you can make it say something new? Gee, wonder how that works. Let me take a little Shakespeare and a little Edgar Allan Poe, and let's make a really interesting version of Romeo and Juliet and add a little bit of Eleanor in there, huh? Let's really get interesting. Let's get kooky.
It wasn't that the devil wanted to be like the Most High. The devil wanted to usurp the Most High, to take God.
I mean,
God out of his place and put himself in God's position. How do we know that? Well, it's just spelled out right here in verse 17.
yeah, it's spelled out that King Nebuchadnezzar was a jerk. Correct. Not Satan. Definitely not the Satan of the Old Testament, who is an angel, who is a job. It's a job description of an angel, possibly an archangel of the Lord. Okay? So an angel who serves God, who's doing a job of Satan, who's witnessing people's sins, is not being described here. This is not a description of the accuser. This is a description of the conqueror. Conqueror is a different guy. Different, even if you go Old Testament only, just different guy.
The devil's pride in himself and in his own beauty caused him to corrupt wisdom for the sake of his own glory. That's what he was after. Self-glorification.
Thomas says it's a riddle wrapped inside an enigma, wrapped inside a taco. Yes.
And in self-glorification, there is no room for God. There is only room for the self.
Interesting comparison.
You know, you could get the same lesson from there without having to make it about Satan. You could simply keep it about Nebuchadnezzar, and you could say, hey, look, these are the qualities you don't want.
To make God has, his angels, and he has Satan, and Satan has like this adoration for God, and then wants to be like God.
Well, yeah, but was it adoration though? Was it adoration? Like, is that what the Bible just said? It was adoration?
God, and somebody had asked me one time, like, well, what would you do if somebody, came into your house and wanted your house and wanted your stuff? I'm like, I would show them how I got it. I would show them how to get it.
Okay, second hour time. Let's take a little break, and when I get back, Mormons. Let's see what them doing. There we go. Let me let this part go. Ninja Frostvault. It's where you hide your ninjas. Okay, I'll be right back, guys. Let's take a little break.
Effects. Yeah. I never take doubt as a lesson. I never second guess it. Take negativity and reject it. I got my mind blind to rejection, so I'll be just fine. Don't be wasting any time with discretion. I run this campaign like I'm running an election. I pop this champagne like we're not in a recession. I feel no damn pain. Ibuprofen is a blessing. Feel it pumping through my veins. Got me feeling like I'm flexing, yeah. I'm in motion, I'm obsessive like the ocean, I'm relentless. No promotion, still progressing, overdosing on these lessons. And these words my only weapon, cut you deep, oh yeah, I threaten. Feel the heat and all the tension, need relief from this whole session. But I keep myself progressing, cause I creep around suppressants. I don't sleep enough, you guessed it, every second is a blessing. Got no time to be depressed, on this grind you always stress. So I work harder than the rest, that always said to do my best.
I don't ever doubt myself, I can count on no one else. And I do not need your help, I was told to show, not tell. I don't ever doubt myself, I can count on no one else. And I do not need your help, I was told to show, not tell. So watch me. So watch me.
All right. Here we go.
Huge banner that says DNA proves the Book of Mormon is false. Well, for me, basically, already having a
Testimony.
The testimony of the book is true. The geography thing wasn't that big.
I said I was going to talk about what we talking. Okay, so Book of Mormon starts off trying to justify Joseph Smith and trying to justify Joseph Smith Jr. I don't really know what the junior part is about. Anyway, it begins as a son telling a story about, and his father's a witness for some reason. A son's telling a story, and he's telling about how he got the golden plates. He's talking about how an angel came to him, warned him not to tell anyone, warned him not to tell him about the plates, blah, blah, blah. Then he wrote it down, whatever. Then it goes into a meta-narrative. Then it goes into a meta-narrative where the exact same story is told again, but this time by Nephi. And now Nephi's telling the story. So it's Joseph Smith telling the story that Nephi told. So now we're two narratives deep. I think we even get to 3 narratives deep. It gets kind of weird because there's like, I don't want to call it time travel, but there's like time leaps, time jumps. Then we get to like 300 BC or something like that, 500 BC. And they want to, these group of people who want to leave Israel or want to leave wherever they are around Israel, but they can't because they want to take the golden tablets with them. Don't exist, but apparently now they do. And so then they're writing the golden tablets. They're just trying to get the golden tablets. But the priest, the high priest, are they in Jerusalem? I don't know. It's not very clear. It says no. So then they bribe him with money and they say a lot of anti-Semitic stuff, which is kind of weird, considering they're supposed to be Jewish. But anyway, the Jewish people say a lot of anti-Semitic stuff about, or the commentary says a lot of anti-Semitic stuff, followed by, he was so greedy and he wanted so much gold and so money that of course he said yes, and he took the money from the profitable people and gave them the golden tablets. That's where I'm at. That's where I'm at in the Book of Mormon. It reads a lot like a fiction. To be honest with you, there's a lot of parallels with the Aeneid so far. Like a lot of parallels with the Aeneid. So it looks like fiction to me so far. It's not well written, be very blunt. And the it's not even Old English, but like them trying to make it sound like Old English is getting annoying because it's like fake Old English. And that's kind of bothering me. The book itself, though, so far so good. Nothing bad, nothing good. I mean, I listened to it while I was working out. It was fine. Continuing on.
Big of a thing for me, honestly. What was a big thing was the DNA thing, because that was causing this I considered kind of like the kids in my in my priest group or whatever, to kind of be like my kids, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. And he wasn't going on a mission, like, oh man, what's going on here? And so it became very personal for me. Mm-hmm. And so then the whole DNA thing was blowing up, and basically the general idea is that there's no DNA evidence, because when they sequence DNA from Central America and really all over the Americas, they're all Asiatic DNA lineages, descendants. And Lehi and his family weren't Asians. You know, so they came through the lineage of Shem and Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and down through Joseph and so forth.
Yeah.
Right? So they're from, you know, the 12 tribes. So anyway, so it became personal for me at that point.
So there's no evidence for Jewish people living in the Americas pre-Columbus. Who figured?
I remember I was up at the conference center up at, I think it was 2002, and there was this huge banner that says, DNA proves the Book of Mormon is false. And I was like, okay. So at the time I was working with some friends on a natural sciences textbook
Lack of evidence is not evidence.
project.
Yeah.
And had access to some of the top research libraries. And I thought, you know, I'm going to check into this. I mean, why do they think the DNA would disprove the Book of Mormon? And, it comes down to, if the Book of Mormon is about Hebrews, basically, where are the Hebrew bloodlines in the indigenous peoples of the Americas, right? And so that led me to begin to do research involving the DNA stuff. We'd already done some, you know, DNA studies and so forth for this other project, and so that.
Are you driving way less?
Actually pick it up.
Measure.
Right? Well, now if you do that times 10, that would be one lineage.
Yeah.
Now you do that times 10,000 lineages. So you get 10,000 grandmothers, 10,000 mothers, and 10,000, and now all of a sudden
you
get
another level.
and you have. You start to get some statistically, you know, significant numbers. Or in other words, so what is the rate that we actually find? How often does that actually change over the course of 1 or 2 generations? And it turns out it was 26 times faster than the theoretical rate.
Oh, interesting.
By the way, the theoretical rate is called.
That's cute. The Book of Mormon is metaphorically true. So far, I haven't seen any truth in it one way or the other.
Phylogenetic dating,
Of any kind.
and this is called pedigree dating because you're actually using actual human beings.
I'm hoping it's interesting. I'm going to spend 28 hours listening to this. I hope it's interesting.
And actually testing their DNA and seeing how
Who did
fast
Who
it
did
changes.
this study?
It was Parsons, and there's some other people. It's been done. Back shut up here in North America, which is exactly what
a good time.
Book of Mormon
What's interesting to me is, like, for example, for those people that had their testimony affected by that DNA in the Book of Mormon video, it's like with all of the scientific data constantly changing with new research and better technology, it's like it just shows the importance of relying on our spiritual convictions, like you have with your MTC experience, right?
Yeah.
Spiritual convictions over science. Nice reasoning. Nice reasoning.
You know, if it doesn't match up geographically with how we
No. The Mormons want you to feel the fire in the bosom and let you know it's true through inference and intuition.
Look at it and so
And
forth,
emotion.
then we have to toss it out. And of course, his feeling is that the only internal geography that actually works is the Mesoamerican model. Okay, but they think, Rod, you should do that. Well, I did that years and years ago. Long before I ever even started this, I was interested in the geography enough that I actually spent a couple of months actually going through. This is a long time ago. This is before the internet. I'm just kidding. Before Al Gore had invented the internet.
Yeah.
Anyway, so no, just kidding. This was after that, but this is it's confidential information and research. Rod Milton's research for Book of Mormon geography by first appearance.
Confidential. Doesn't seem confidential now, does it?
Age and referencing.
Holy cow!
So I took every single city, and I don't know if you can see this or not on the camera here. Like this is Zarahemla, right? Okay. And then I have every geographical feature. So this is Nephi, Lehi Nephi, Shemlon, Mormon. Enough geographic information to positively identify every place. But just to kind of give you an idea. So this is so what happened was, so this is John Sorensen's book, An Ancient American Setting for the Book of Mormon. I'm going to just turn here to page 1. Okay. And right here, so you can read this part right here. Says that, you want me to read it?
I'll read it.
Okay,
the historical sources give no indication that Moroni's instructions to young Joseph Smith included geography, nor did Joseph Smith claim inspiration on the matter. Ideas he later expressed about the location of events reported in the book apparently reflected his own best thinking.
Because the Book of Mormon is not.
They do realize this isn't helping their case, right? Like they know that.
Geographical primer. It was not written to teach geographical truths, and nowhere gives us the exact situation or boundary so that it can be definitively located without fear of error. Okay, so if witnesses, you have spiritual witnesses and you have physical witness, and that's an important one also. We don't have time to get into all that, but I'll just get to the point here. So basically, the new method for conducting research on the Book of Mormon geography that I came up with, this is from a DVD that I released in 2007.
Yeah.
2008. So this is like
Back
a
when
long
DVDs
time
were a
ago,
thing.
right?
And yet it didn't change academia as we know it.
back when DVDs were actually.
My kid will never see a DVD.
Yeah, probably never see a DVD. Yeah, that's right. So to me, the most important thing is you put the scriptural prophecies and promises first. Those are the least prone to private interpretation. I mean, because there's a slew of them. Okay. Then I wanted to look at, what did Joseph Smith know about this? What were is there any prophetic statements? Did he have any opinion about any of this stuff? Then I want to look at the physical evidences, like the DNA, archaeology, culture, language, civilization, archaeoastronomy, metallurgy, building practices, materials, burials, climate, weather, animals. I mean, all.
So we're looking at the Bible first, then the Book of Mormon / Joseph Smith's opinion, then metallurgy, then history. Doesn't feel like the right approach.
All of that kind of stuff. Does that play into it? Do all of those different things all point to a specific geography or not? And if you have all of those things pointing to a specific geography, doesn't that make it a lot more robust than just one thing saying this is where it is?
Did you just buy a
all laid before the public, for it is of importance to them. I now say unto you that if you wish to clear your garments from the blood of your readers, I exhort you to publish that letter entire.
Dude, Joseph Smith had no chill. He went hard.
But if not, the sin be upon your head.
Yeah.
And so they actually published the whole letter, which is why we have this American Revivalist thing where he says the Book of Mormon is a record of the forefathers of our western tribes of Indians. Now, if he's in New York and you go west, how far west do you have to go to get to Guatemala?
You can't get to Guatemala going far
You can't get to Guatemala by going west.
Yeah.
So either Joseph Smith didn't know what he was talking about, or he's really talking about the western tribes of Indians, which happens to.
Anybody want to pick up that ball? No? Okay.
Be the same ones that the Lord sent.
Because at first I was going to.
Restraints placed by nature and nature's God.
He hasn't talked at all about genetics. He's talked about everything but.
So liberty is not the same as freedom. Freedom gives you the ability to make the choice. Liberty is when you make the choice and you decide to follow God. That's what liberty is.
Interesting.
And the best definition of that is actually in the Book of Mormon and 2nd Nephi. It says that you are free to choose liberty and eternal life, or captivity and death. Right.
So they're already free, but that doesn't give them liberty. Liberty is when they choose it, right?
And not.
I've read a lot of ancient texts, and I've read the Quran. The Book of Mormon has a lot to measure up to. The Aeneid is one of my least favorite books. The Aeneid is one of my least favorite books. The Aeneid and the Book of Anantarato, or the Casa de Anantarato, are my two least favorite books of all time. Oh, yeah, as long as it's better than those, right?
Say, well, wait a minute, but the people up here didn't have a written language. I would say, well, wait a minute. How much written language would you expect to find if the Book of Mormon account is true? Because the Lamanites were determined to destroy the language of the Nephites, right? And so down in Central America, you have every wall, every edifice is covered with language. Why didn't the Lamanites wipe all that out if that was the Nephites?
Yeah.
You would expect to not find much. In fact, you'd hardly find any linguistic evidence. So when you add up the DNA, the geography, which we haven't even gotten into really. You want to go into the geography? Because it's just
not on this part. We're going to have to do a part two because it would go on forever. But let's do a wrap up of what you were saying. So the DNA.
Yeah. So when you add all of these different things up, all the prophecies in the Book of Mormon that point to the United States of America is the promised land. It is the nation above all other nations. It's where the Gentiles were. It's where the gospel was restored. It's where the New Jerusalem is located. All of those prophecies you have to ignore in favor of your particular personal interpretation of the geography passages. Okay, so if you add up all of these other things, the archaeology, the linguistics, the DNA, the animals and the plants, the prophecies in the Book of Mormon, and all of these other areas of research, they all point to one conclusion.
Yeah.
And that's it happened in the heartland of America. If you take just this one thing and you say, okay, we're just going to do a geographic passages deal, and based on our interpretation, the only place that works is Mesoamerica, then that's what you got. But when nothing else works, that's why millennials and Gen X's and Gen Z's see through the Mesoamerican stuff. That's why it's been dying a very quick death lately. Our books are by far and away the most most purchased and so forth. There's after John Swarnson's book, which has been around.
To people.
Yeah, John Swarnson's book has been around for over 30 years. It sold 25,000 copies. This book has sold 65,000 copies. And the new annotated edition of the Book of Mormon, which is now the #1 best-selling edition of the Book of Mormon.
Really?
Okay, I'm going to go get some. Oh, wait. Annotated version of the Book of Mormon. I don't have that.
Really?
It's right here in Desert Book and so forth.
Give me one of those.
Beautiful.
Oh man, this has all of that information and research embedded, along with the original text, completely reformatted.
Really?
It's the first ever edition of the Book of Mormon that's actually a red letter edition.
Wow.
You know, other faiths have had red letter editions of the New Testament.
Yeah.
I love that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I don't like the red letter editions of anything. All right, so here we go. I'm gonna get some nasal spray, and we're gonna go to Zelph on a shelf. Let's see. This is probably gonna be the last video of the night. Will be this one over here. Okay.
This cold brew concentrate in the description box because it's delicious and I just really want you all to try it.
All right, welcome to another episode of Zelph on the Shelf, the segment we call Reading Mormon Apologetics So You Don't Have to. Woo! We've got a lot of requests to respond to the Mormon Hub article, 21 Reasons It Doesn't Matter If the Church is True.
I feel like we've just been handed a gift based on this title, but we'll see. Should we just jump straight in? Do we have any housekeeping we need to bring up? Oh, housekeeping. If you like what we're doing and you want to support us because we're, not poor college students.
Just poor
people.
Poor
postgrads, I guess. We really like making online content, but it's not profitable. And we want to be able to spend a lot of time doing it. So if you like the stuff we make, then feel free to donate using the link that we'll leave below. And if you don't and you just want to keep watching our video, that's fine too. Here we go.
All right, it starts off. A lot of people aren't looking for a true church, they're looking for a good church.
I'm looking for no church.
Yeah. Also, I think just like that right off the bat has people like Spencer W. Kimball rolling in their grave with Sir McConkie.
I thought that was literally the whole pitch of this church. When I was taking the missionary lessons, that was the entire pitch, was that this is not just a good church. But it does give us a hint of where Mormonism is heading.
I imagine missionaries knocking on the door. Hi, are you looking for a good church, not necessarily a true
good
church?
One with like some controversy that will be in the news constantly.
Hello, JP. Welcome to my channel.
Also, should we move the cat's box?
Yep, the cat's box needs to go.
It's quite loud.
Come on, kittens.
Here's a fact: I'm not supposed to drink coffee. It's bad for my skin. I have vitiligo and it makes it turn white. So coffee is literally making me more white and delightsome, and makes its members and the world around it better.
Fundamentally sound.
I'm not trying to say the church is perfect, but we so often get stuck focusing on its minor faults and its truth claims. You know, as we're talking about religion and theology, you'd think that would be somewhat important.
Stuck on its truth claims.
I know Dan's been on this channel. I'm curious how he interacts with them.
We often miss what an outstanding organization it simply is. Here are 21 reasons we are lucky to be members.
Maybe this isn't the gift I thought it was going to be.
Just the facepalm.
Okay. Number 1, takes care of their own.
So does ISIS.
Yeah, I feel like takes care of their own is what you say about like the KKK. They take care of their own.
We're good at tribalism.
That's probably why you're not monetized.
Church does good by those who are members through fast offerings, bishop storehouses, and job services, along with ward councils and home teachers to make sure no one slips through the cracks. The cracks of what? The church is wildly efficient at caring for its own members. There's a hyperlink and it goes to the Wikipedia page for LDS Humanitarian Services. I tried to right click and you don't have right click enabled.
You got a control click.
That's insane, Tanner. Okay, great, cool. Wikipedia page. We should edit that sometime. What is that to say about that? I mean, like everyone takes care of their own. That's one of the most fundamental parts of being human.
LGBT community. It's like, what is the church doing for them? Oh, you came out with a website, but didn't mention all the people who are committing suicide? Like, how are you taking care of your own mind?
A friend of yours, yeah. Okay. Its wards regularly serve at the community level. I'm going to be 100% honest, and I know I didn't grow up in the church. I know I was in England, so it's kind of a different environment. I feel like in my 6 years in the church, the amount of community service I did was absolutely minimal. Absolutely minimal. It says whether it's participating in local service projects, working at local food banks, or organising with the new justserve.org website, Latter-day Saints strive to make where they live a better place. As if people who aren't Latter-day Saints isn't that?
It's usually because they're too busy taking care of their own, cleaning their churches.
That one
does that. It's called PR.
Yeah.
Just because someone does good. I mean, we don't.
It's tied to something else, or it is just a PR effort. And the church spent more on a mall than it did in 20 years of humanitarian work. So that argument just needs to stop coming up.
30 years of humanitarian work.
Was it 30?
Yeah.
It was 30.
All right, number 4 has long-term security. That's what happens when you stop caring about people and care about real estate investment. You get long-term security.
Love it.
If you're looking at an organization to do good.
Period.
If you're looking at an organization to do good.
Darn it. No music. They're energetic, but they're not giving me a lot to comment on. Hopefully they start saying interesting things that I can actually chew on.
the long haul. Through its wise investments, the Church of Jesus Christ is among the most financially secure institutions on earth, which you would actually not know because they do not release their finances.
I cannot believe they wrote that. I cannot believe they're trying to. There is no awareness here. If you're a non-member and you're like,
let me just give you a little history lesson into church finances. The reason that the church's finances are hidden is because Henry D. Moyle bankrupted the church through its building efforts. His idea was to build really expensive churches in low.
I'm a member of the Catholic Church, so this doesn't bother me at all. Bothering anyone else in the audience? It doesn't bother me.
Income areas and other areas where membership wasn't really high, in the hopes that it would attract new people, new members who were like, oh, I want to worship in that really nice building. Guess what? It didn't work, even though they did like hundreds of thousands. That's the only. So he did things like that. Yeah, I want to do that song, the Henry D. Moyle song. Can we just have a breakdown?
How does it go?
I love that. Not respond well to criticism.
No, I mean, how many people have been excommunicated for criticizing it?
Yeah.
We can list.
Respond well to criticism.
Funny, and it's like that's not representative of their germ. Like, yeah, they really knocked out. Like, I thought it was like so funny, and it's like that's not representative of their general approach.
Yeah, no, the church does not respond well to criticism.
No, I mean, how many people have been excommunicated for criticizing it?
Yeah.
We can list several
off the top of our head because
Kate, John, Jeremy.
CES letter that forced our hand into revealing documents that we've been sitting on for 2 centuries and refusing to publish and excommunicating historians who were dared publish them. We're doing it because we want people to doubt.
As Henry B. Eyring's father told him, in the church you don't have to believe anything that isn't true.
Okay, so let's start with the first vision. Let's start with the Book of Mormon. Let's start with the 3 witnesses. Let's start with the Book of Abraham. Let's start with restoration of the priesthood. Let's start with polygamy and just go from there.
Okay, you're gonna have to read 8.
Oh my God, I cannot.
I don't know whether to laugh or cry.
Interesting. Again,
8
nothing
doesn't
really for me to
randomly
respond
change to keep up with the times. In their defense, the church doesn't randomly change to keep up with the times.
No, it's very much a response to criticism.
A response to criticism and mostly political and financial pressure. That's really the big issue, isn't it? Many organizations are constantly worried about trying to keep up with the times and are often chasing whatever the trend du jour may be.
Not us. We will still discriminate against LGBT people in 2016.
In 2016.
We are unchanging.
We'll keep fighting gay marriage. I mean, this is just like.
Okay.
Or I wish we could sit down with.
I wonder what their view
Orwell
is of the current Mormon Church, considering how much has changed in the last 5 years.
Go and break down your printing press, moral charge. What other things did you want?
I was thinking of the BYU football thing. Like everyone else was calling them out for racism, like these non-members, these other schools.
Yeah.
And then the church somehow can still think of itself as a moral leader, even though it was racist for decades longer than everyone else. And probably more than decades, really.
This is great. It's like the things that the church tells us are.
I'm not trying to defend Mormonism here, but the problem of hypocrisy is universal. So this is not a good complaint either. It's a childish complaint. Let's move up. Let's move forward a little bit.
It doesn't sound true, but I swear it is, holding a huge thing of Diet Coke or goodness knows what soda it was. And she was like, oh, but being vegan isn't healthy because the Bible says to eat meat or something like that. And like...
Awesome. The Bible also says it's okay to have slaves.
Tan, you should read this one.
12. The church is more educated. The Latter-day Saints have a rich theology around education, 3 world-class universities, and many initiatives to increase education around the world. And unlike virtually every other demographic, Latter-day Saints who are more committed to the church are more educated. I will give you this. I think the church does better than some organizations at promoting.
Yeah, like the Jehovah's Witnesses.
Yeah, who are like actively...
The bottom of the pile. Yeah, the church doesn't like... But that's the thing. What use is it to say like, yeah, get education? Let's be honest, the advice is basically for men, even if it's unsaid in a lot of ways. Because like women are... I went to BYU, I don't, and so did you. Like they encourage you in devotional to have kids while in college. You know, that's a nightmare. So women obviously aren't going to be able to continue their education that well if they've got a bunch of kids. And then what is even the use of all this education if you're going to reject fundamental scientific principles and like findings that like the rest of the world has long accepted? Like if you're still denying science and evidence, what is the point of education? If you have no critical...
I don't know enough about the internal politics of Mormonism, but do they deny evolution? Geocentrism? Where are they at? Where are they at? Are they flat earthers? What's the problem here? Someone who knows about Mormonism, let me know.
From the prophets about why evolution is of the devil. 13. Self-reliant. While the church is fantastic at helping members who need it, the church's teachings also help more members be self-reliant. Mormons are less likely to be
They accept evolution. Thank you, Thomas.
in lower income brackets and much more likely to be middle class. Much more likely to be middle class, yeah, because they're white.
These two people are biased against the Mormon church, so it's hard to know how much of what they say is either their personal bias, something that someone who didn't understand their faith taught them, misunderstandings, that kind of stuff. Just a bad leader or a bad preacher or priest. I don't know how their services work, so.
Americans who live in Utah, like mostly, and the ones you baptize in third world countries don't come back.
Yeah.
And also, like, sure, maybe encourage. I mean, like, how unself-reliant do they think people outside the church is? Because from my perspective, everyone in the church is relying on a community is not a bad thing, but like, you're like going to your bishop to decide if you should like make some huge life change that they have absolutely no idea about. And like, it's not like growing up in a non-LDS environment. People aren't all. I mean, who are they reliant on? Do they think everyone's just reliant on the government?
I think they're talking. I think there was something about Mormon like do-it-yourselfness.
Sure, they're all
like,
Republican. They don't believe in socialism. We get it.
Homemaking and food storage.
Etsy stores and MLMs and scams and fraud.
I wonder how Republicans feel about Mormons, considering they're mostly Christian Protestants.
Tigers, oh my.
14. Prepared for emergencies. Not only are members more self-reliant in the day-to-day, they are more prepared for when the worst comes. The institutional church does this with its financial stability, but individual members are also more likely to save for a rainy day, have emergency supplies, and food storage.
Family than like say Tanner is to some of his like.
I will say here that in where I live, most of the Mormons who come down are affluent and they live in the nicer houses, and the people who they're recruiting seem to be mostly middle class. A long time ago, they were recruiting from the lower class, but I noticed that they've been recruiting upwardly mobile people lately. So I don't know if the recruitment strategy has changed, but I know that where we would see Mormons on their bikes in maybe like 25 years ago, it's not the same locations now. Now they seem to be hitting more affluent neighborhoods. So I don't know if that's a change. Yes, JP, these two are ex-Mormons. Although I don't know their current status because they do have some Mormon speakers now go on their show. I don't know if they reverted. I don't know. This is a video that's 6 years old or something.
Immediate family members in a lot of ways.
There's too many.
Just because there's so many in Mormonism, and I'm not saying that like big families are bad, but like growing up, I was like
forever and never stop being entertained. They continue to tell biblical stories and preserve the tradition of early Christian pioneers. Then add the stories of the Book of Mormon and 19th century pioneers. Plus, each new generation of prophets brings a new batch of updated stories of righteous living.
Batch makes it sound like Thomas S. Monson has more stories than he seems to have, doesn't it?
Yeah, he has a cycle, doesn't he?
I mean, they bring like 4 new stories. 17, come from many backgrounds. The LDS Church is growing. Is it? While many religious groups come from a similar religious background.
I mean, I'm in deep South Texas and we have a Mormon temple here now. So yeah, it's growing.
Just about every Mormon congregation will have many converts who come from many different religions, races, abilities, and countries. That is not true. Both the number of Mormons and the number of Mormon congregations are growing rapidly because aren't they making wards and stakes smaller?
I agree, JP. It is a very good question. Catholicism is interesting. Most of the apologists who identify as conservative Christian are also Republican, but the actual demographics of Catholics is pretty well mixed. And for a while there was mostly Democrats who were Catholics were mostly Democratic. So I do think it's interesting that in Mormonism it seems to lean mostly right, at least according to these two people. And again, who knows the context? And it has been a few years since they made this video. Who knows if they're correct, and who knows if it's still true.
To offset the people leaving. And just about every Latter-day Saint knows many converts in their local congregation.
Nice.
Okay, yeah, that's where they'd be, so.
Also, what does this say about ethnic wards? Because they'll do that, right? They'll have like a Polynesian ward, a Hispanic ward. I wonder what the benefits, the pros and cons are of that.
I can see the benefit of being among like sort of similar, but I mean, to try and claim that the LDS Church is cultured when it's like this ethnocentric American religion is just crazy.
Especially, yeah, I think we've talked about this in other.
So that is interesting. There was a Mormon, that was a group of Mormons, I guess, that were talking to me about coming to to their church service. I went to their church and we had a conversation there. And there's an interesting divide, and maybe it's because of the way that I speak. I don't know, but there's I guess a Mexican. I would call it a Mexican mass here in where I live, but I guess a Mexican service, a Spanish language service with one group of people, and then there's an English service, and they don't intermix. And I thought that was interesting. Not like they don't talk to each other, but as in like they don't know each other. And it's a very tight community that they have, but I only know this because a friend of mine who became Mormon is going to the Spanish one, and they're not intermixing with the other group. And the other group is a group that was trying to get me to join, and we were having like this really deep conversation about theology and all this kind of stuff. But I would be going. My Hispanic ass would be going to the white one. Would be going to that. So I thought that was interesting. Who was trying to recruit me and where they would be going, and I don't know if that's how it would work. Once I'm actually like, if I became a member, if they would then like make me go to the Spanish one, that wouldn't work for me at all. I don't speak Spanish, but yeah, that's interesting. If what the implications here in this video, if they're correct, which I don't know if they are or not.
Other videos, the church isn't about celebrating culture; it's about cultural genocide and assimilating other cultures, and the fact that they're going into other countries and making them dress up in American business attire is just ridiculous. 18 are happy, which is why Utah leads the nation in antidepressant use and prescription drug overdose.
And youth suicides. Members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints are...
Yeah, they're never getting monetized.
Happy. If we say it, it's true. Latter-day Saints have got this well-being index composite.
Jewish people
are beating you.
They're beating you.
The Jews. This is based on telephone interviews. This is self-reporting. Even Gallup admits that there's sampling errors and question wording and practical difficulties that may have introduced error or bias in the findings of public opinion polls. Okay, 19 promotes pro-social behaviors. When University of Pennsylvania psychologists wanted to find out why Mormons perform so well in well-being metrics, they discovered how connected we are to other people. That could be very true. While many people are becoming more and more individualistic, the researchers found
being able to have something to always
Okay.
This pairs well as point 18. The church creates both a local and worldwide community. In local wards and branches, connections are made through socials and auxiliaries, home and visiting teachers.
Line, which really didn't seem to come into this article much, given the fact that it was, very linked to a lot of the points of discussion.
Okay, so that's it. I think we're good. Here. This was fun. This was good. It wasn't as fun as yesterday, but that's okay. I got to go work out. I got to go work tomorrow. Yeah. I'll see you all tomorrow. Tomorrow we're continuing Mormonism week. There is not going to be an open room this week. So on Thursday, we will just be doing another show. So we'll have four videos on Mormonism. And then there's no topic video on Sunday. I might still do topic videos once or twice a month, but they're no longer going to be scheduled. It's just if I have something that I want to say, that I want to film, and I want to edit, that's what I'm going to do. But we're going to stick mostly to this format. For debates, I'm still going to do summary videos. So any debate that I do or that I watch that I find interesting, I'll go ahead and do a summary video. Any responses, I'll do summary videos. And those would be short 5-minute to 15-minute videos. That'll be my content. And then the rest will just be streaming. I'm trying to get a guest host. If anybody who watches this regularly would like to guest host with me or do this with me on the regular, I'm looking for a sidekick, as they say, as Adam and Stitch would say. So yeah. JP says, interesting that many various American-based churches import American culture along with their message. Yes, I agree. I do think that's an aspect of it. You're exporting out a Jewish culture to the rest of the world, and now through the way world works, the way that history works, American evangelicals and American Mormons are now exporting Americanism into the old world. It's an interesting thing. Okay, so like I said, we are done for the night. I'm about to finish up. I'll play the music in about a minute. Tomorrow we'll continue on with our journey through Mormonism. I'll have more summary of the Book of Mormon. Hopefully I'll finish it this week. If not, I'll finish it next week. And then I'll probably do a special video just in the Book of Mormon. I'll do a Book of Mormon book review. And I am looking for someone to do this with me. I think it'll be more fun with 2 people, maybe 3. I don't want to go over 3 people. We can do it through here, but I would like to build the stream and start building up a larger audience. BS, you know I'm interested in recruiting you, buddy. And everybody else, have a great night. I love you all. Have a good one. Peace. No, don't end stream. Don't end stream. Music time.
Man, this beat got me aggressive, got me on the straight offensive. You can't stop this train direction, cause it runs without an engine. But when did I fail to mention that I need all your attention? Cause we're failing in retention, listen up or just forget it. I ain't here to spit perfection, I embrace my imperfections. I just want all that's neglected to hear something they connect with. So I use my only method, all these words that I've invested. I don't hope that they're impressive, I just hope that they're effective. Yeah, I swear to God, if you want it, then you got to get it. Cause when I'm on my deathbed, no, I will not regret it. You only got one life, one shot, don't let it slip away. Today, get up and make a big change, huh? You decide your own future, a winner or a loser, a headline or a rumor, on the bench or a shooter, superstar or recruiter, defensive prosecutor, just living a consumer, or will you be a producer?